This afternoon, actor Alec Baldwin is expected to appear virtually at a motions hearing in New Mexico. Baldwin and his lawyers want the case against him in the Rust movie set shooting to be thrown out. They argue that the manslaughter charge against Baldwin is unjustified. His trial is set to begin in July with jury selection in connection to the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. Now, she was fatally shot on the set of the film Rust. Baldwin maintains he didn't pull the trigger, which is what he told police.
And then I'm going to slowly sneak the revolver, the Colt out and turn and shoot these other guys, or try to shoot them. I take the coat over the thing, and the camera's there. I believe, my recollection is she was there, turned a bit, like talking to him. So I think she was hit in the right armpit.
But is the actor still responsible for Hutchins' death in any way, in a criminal way, is the question that we are faced with now in this July trial. I'd like to welcome in two guests, Hollywood prop master and armorer Dutch Merrick and former Hollywood prop master and armorer Jeff Spellerberg, who also worked on set with Alec Baldwin in the past. It's so good to have you both help us go through some of these issues in this case that is coming very closely to a trial. Jeff, let me start with you. This motion to dismiss has to do with the fact that the gun has been destroyed, and they don't think that it is fair that these charges are still going forward against Alec Baldwin. Your thoughts on the gun in this case and how it relates to these sets? Do you think there needed to be more testing on this particular gun?
Well, I don't think there can. Thank you very much for having me, Julia. I don't think there can be any more testing on the weapon. I think they destroyed the actual weapon in testing, which to me denies the defense any opportunity to actually actually test the weapon on their own with their own expert. So I don't know why the prosecution did that, but I'm sure that they're going to object to that.
Now, Jeff, a follow-up question. You worked with Alec Baldwin. What was your impression of him on sets, and just your thoughts on what you can share about that?
Yeah, that's back when I had dark hair. We worked together maybe 30 years ago on a film in Del Rio, Texas called The Alamo, 13 Days to Glory. I found Alec to be a very personable guy, and he was a very, very safety conscious guy, almost to an extreme. When he would never want to have the gun in his hand until we actually started filming, and then he would typically give it back to me immediately afterwards. And he wasn't really a fan of gun. I've worked with other actors who are a little bit too much of a fan, and they're a little more hard to, they require a lot more circumspection. But Alec was a very safety conscious guy at that time.
And Dutch, that's the opposite of what we're going to hear from the prosecution when this trial begins in July. And I understand you have actually brought some props as a prop master to show us the handling of the gun, what is appropriate there on sets. We walked through it in the trial for the former Rust armorer, Hannah Gutierrez, but what can you share that will help us understand going into this trial about how the protocol should have been?
Well, it's a really standard process. We do it the same way every time, and it's a sacred relationship between the armorer and the actor, and nobody should get in between that, including Dave Hall's the first AD. The process would involve, and I'll switch to, a dummy round looks very much like a regular bullet, and you wouldn't be able to see it visually, though it has a rattle in it, and it would be different. And then a blank has, as you see, looks like the end of a hot dog or a sausage. It's a crimped end. When we load the gun, you'd put this single action Army gun on half cock, you'd open a loading door, and then you would load the dummies in one by one into the chambers, and then you'd eject them one by one. Alec Baldwin, he entrusted two professionals to have been two sets of eyes to make sure that the gun was prepared, safe, cold, as they said, and that there was no chance anybody would get hurt. So I can't imagine in a million years he would think that anybody could get hurt from him being handled this thing that's been prepared in advance by professionals.
And Dutch, there is no way for him to know if that was a live round. Is that correct? You're talking about the rattle. The armorer would be the only one to do that, or is there a visual way that he would have known during those sets, during those takes, that this was potentially a live round?
Well, that show, unfortunately, was using 3 different kinds of dummy rounds. The dummy round, which is the standard for the industry now, has a rattle inside, so it looks identical on the outside. The older style dummy rounds would have had a dimpled primer and a fired primer, so you could put that in the gun and you could dry fire on it to show that it's still dead and inert. And the third kind of blank would have a hole drilled right through the case. So Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's working with 3 different kinds of dummy rounds. Actors have the opportunity to oversee the loading of the gun if they'd like. It's their right, but it's not necessarily their responsibility. So he could have rattled each individual round before they went in the gun, but the process of doing that takes an enormous amount of time, and it's not really practical on a Western in particular.
Yeah, let's actually take a listen back to a moment that played out in the Hannah Gutierrez trial where we're seeing Alec Baldwin going through some takes with that armor.
One more. I forgot the recoil stuff. No, right away. Let's reload. Here we go.
So, Halyna. Hi.
I want to see the shooting. Here we go. Come on.
Jeff, is that similar to the Alec Baldwin that you remember working with, but also he's going to be charged, or he is charged, he's going to be facing those charges at trial, not only as an actor who was using the gun, but also as a producer who handled how things flowed on this set. Do you think that there's more culpability on one versus the other?
Well, I've been a producer myself in the film business, and I'll say this much, that Alec Baldwin didn't even show up to that movie set till a week after they started shooting. And he has a production agreement as a producer deal that I think is fairly common with actors. High-value actors have producer deals that typically take care of their back-end deal. But he wasn't there to hire anybody. He didn't hire the armor. He didn't hire any of those people. And if you see him on this set where he's in a rushed sort of a thing, but it's completely different than the set that the prosecutor's actually charging him with. There's no evidence that he was trying to rush anybody or do anything to control the set in that situation. I think you have to really look at the actual thing they're charging him for. And in that situation, he's in a very controlled environment. He's working closely with the director photographer and the director, and they're working on how to draw the gun and how they're going to pull out the gun. And I'm sure Dutch is with me on this, is whenever I would hand any actor a gun on a set, I would stand on the set and watch what they're doing. I would also ensure that it was completely safe to be used for whatever they're going to use it for. I don't tell them what they're going to do. They are working together to try to draw that gun in a manner that's going to work for the film that they're making, for that shot that they're trying to make. He may want to draw it in a menacing manner. He may be drawing it surreptitiously, trying to sneak it out or something like that. And I give them a gun they're safe to point it any which direction they need to while they're working that shot out. And then if they're going to actually fire the gun at that point, we would come in and load it with a blank round. And at that point, we would probably try to direct him a little more, direct the cast and crew to make sure no one was in a line of danger. But what he was doing on that set that day, I see the press has made a lot of ballyhoo out of that, and I'm sure the prosecutor is going to as well. But I'm not sure how relevant it is to the actual accident that happened on the set.
And Dutch, I want to get your reaction, but I did want to quickly play a soundbite of the pointing of that gun that came up during the Gutierrez trial. Let's play that quickly and get your reaction on the other side.
Let me show you something. Hold on. Step back to your original mark. So 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, I'm getting up. Right. Then when he drops his arm, Halyna, get out. He drops his arm. That means Brady's close. I'm going to start to really get up. Okay.
Dutch, your thoughts on how an armorer and an actor, that close relationship, is there anything that can interrupt that, where the onus is now on the actor and not on just the armorer?
Well, ultimately, once the gun is in the actor's hand, it's his responsibility, and he has to mind what we like to call the 3 golden rules. You keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, you keep your finger off the trigger, and you treat it as though it's loaded. And I noticed watching that footage that Baldwin was very good about keeping his finger off the trigger. And I understand that he's gesticulating with the gun at that moment, and there's a lot of people downrange of that. But again, he knows that it's only filled with blanks, and they've choreographed when and where he's going to fire. And again, he has entrusted that it is set up in a way that is absolutely safe.